We hope you don't have cancer, but if you do, this show's for you. The Stupid Cancer Show!
Hey guys, we're back here on the Stupid Cancer Show with another exciting episode just for you. I am joined here by Dr. Petros Giannikopoulos, the founder and president at Driver.
Thank you.
And we'll learn about what that is in a little bit. But first and foremost, I did say doctor.
That's
so
right.
you went to medical school.
That's correct. That's correct.
At the most unimpressive college, Harvard. For those of you out there, Harvard, the most unimpressive. I'm being...
They have a medical school.
Yeah,
they do.
It's very impressive. I have notes. Triple board certified. Can you be triple board certified?
Well, just to clarify, so I'm a pathologist.
Yeah.
And every medical specialty has a primary certification. So
Right.
if you're an internal medicine doc, you go through your internal medicine boards. If you're a radiation oncologist, there's your radiation oncology boards. So I have my primary certification in pathology, and then I have 2 fellowships. So I specialized in pediatric pathology, so that's an area of medicine that I'm very interested in. So I'm a pediatric pathologist, and I specialized in molecular pathology. So I have 2 subspecialty board certifications, but really, I'm just a pathologist.
It's always exciting when I'm the dumbest guy in the room.
No.
So kudos to you.
It's, I've noticed, and patients oftentimes learn more about their disease than their doctors do sometimes.
Yeah.
So particularly when
but that's the segue, because you were diagnosed with young adult testicular cancer while you were in medicine.
That's correct.
Which probably made you your own worst enemy and the enemy of every doctor who you tried to talk to.
Well,
talk us through that.
Well, so as a medical student, we're notoriously paranoid and hypochondriacs, right?
By default.
Yeah, and so that happens just at baseline. So when I was a third-year medical student, which is like just one of the worst years of medical school, it's just grueling, I got diagnosed with testicular cancer, and it was kind of it was like a lightning bolt. You don't think about getting sick when you're 25
in the prime of your life.
Yeah, and you're indestructible, and so it really was shocking, and
Did
terrifying.
you ignore it? Were there symptoms? Did you have a checkup? I mean, who goes to the doctor at 25, right?
Actually, I just
when you were a doctor, do you go to the doctor?
Yeah, you actually do. But yeah, I found a lump. I went to my primary care doctor in Cambridge. So the medical school is in Boston.
Right.
I went to the medical services in Cambridge, and he said you should get an ultrasound. So literally, 2 days, like the next day, I got an ultrasound. And when you have the mass in the testis, it's malignant until proven otherwise. So you need surgery. So I got set up with the urologist right away, and then I had my surgery literally a week later.
Orchiectomy?
Yes, an orchiectomy. And the crazy part was that all happened.
Which is when they remove your testicle. Okay.
And the thing was, that all happened very fast. But then what took forever was the pathologic diagnosis.
Waiting.
Waiting to know what
waiting
type.
period.
And for those of your viewers out there who know, testicular cancer is basically broken up into kind of 2 families. There's seminomatous and non-seminomatous tumors.
Right.
And because I was 25 at the time, the likelihood that I had a non-seminomatous tumor was quite high.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was walking down Newbury Street. My brother was with me, and it was Patriots Day. So the Boston Marathon was going on.
Right.
And I had a friend of mine who was actually at the hospital where I had my surgery, and he got the results before they actually got issued. And so
which they're not supposed to.
Well, he had my permission.
Yes.
But he called me, and I was excited because I had a seminoma. So who high fives when they get a diagnosis? But what that meant was that I didn't have to undergo chemotherapy.
Wow.
And sort of a more extensive surgery. And so I underwent radiation. And it was, it's how I got interested in pathology, because my whole treatment depended upon that diagnosis.
Yeah. What did you have?
And so and it's also how I got interested in oncology. So, and that was really how
trial by fire.
Yeah,
the injection into oncology.
Yeah, and and that personal experience, it just, it was something that affected me personally, and so I wanted to dedicate my life to helping other people who maybe weren't as fortunate as I am. You know, testicular cancer fortunately has a very good prognosis.
Yes, in many cases it does.
Yeah, and you know, in some cases though, it's you know, it can be rough, and so that was what kind of started it all for me.
I have to ask then, the obvious question is, was there a conversation about banking your sperm?
Well, actually, there was, and I did.
That's good.
Yes, and I did bank.
And was it awkward? Because it has to be awkward.
A little bit, particularly.
If it's
like,
not awkward, it's, you know, there's something wrong.
You know, and I didn't. Yeah, that was it was a little awkward.
Yeah.
But you know, funny enough, you know, I got married, and
Wait, were you
later,
dating or engaged while you were diagnosed,
no.
or single?
I was single at the time. But recently, you know, I got married, and so this all came up. So fortunately, like,
Yeah, how do you disclose that? Hi, I really like you. I have one nut.
a uniballer.
Yeah, you're half nuts.
Oh yeah. So no,
You've never heard that before.
half nuts. No. Or I heard you know, that baseball player John Kruk, you know, had testicular cancer, and so there's a funny thing about taking your ball and going home. So, yeah.
Fewer balls to juggle.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But yeah, that was really how I got started. You know.
But when do you disclose? Just to wrap up, because it's important.
Yeah.
When do you disclose, or did you want to? Were you afraid to? Did you ever
No.
feel judged that I'm dating, and how do I talk to women about this?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. It's you know, I talked about it very openly, and maybe it's my medical background. I didn't feel ashamed by it.
Right.
But yeah, typically it's I think it's about I think that's a first date conversation.
Yeah.
You know, because it's part of who I am.
Yeah.
You know, changes the way you view the world a little bit.
The first time I went out with a girl after I was diagnosed with cancer was at a diner on 23rd Street. I'll never forget it, the Malibu Diner on 23rd Street, New York City. And I was 18 months out of cancer. I had not told anybody that I was sick, or had been sick for that matter. And I was working at a company where no one knew who I was. All my friends went to college, and it was like, who's this Matt kid, whatever. I'm fixing toner cartridges and whatever. And I told her I wanted to have lunch with you. Her name was Terry. And I wanted to celebrate having, like today's my 18th month anniversary from cancer. And she like burst out crying.
Oh my gosh.
Like, I wasn't, like, no judgment on her. Like, that was her reaction.
Yeah.
But the whole diner started staring at us.
Yeah.
Because as if I made my girlfriend weep at lunch.
That.
But it, like, I just.
Like, who is that asshole?
Exactly. And like, I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah.
But I hear what you're saying, and I love the idea that because you were in medicine, it was just naturally destigmatized in your id to that extent. Yeah.
No, and that's part of you know, I think you're in some ways diseases, cancer. You know, it's a little more. I don't want to say matter of fact, but you're around it a lot, so it didn't feel quite. Yeah, at least I didn't feel like it was something burdensome that I couldn't talk about.
Right.
And I think and when you do get comfortable with it, you'd be surprised. I mean, how people react. And
I think these days people freak out less, perhaps.
Yeah.
Although we hear horror stories all the time.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole invisible disease where you don't look sick, and everyone's like, "Oh, just get over it. You're fine, right?"
Yeah.
Did you go through any PTSD or follow-up issues?
No,
or
I think after the
anxiety.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because for a period of time, I actually was. Well, you know, I had one testicle left, and so I was paranoid about the remaining testicle. So I always thought that, you know, you're always. Anytime you feel like a lump or a bump or a little like ache or a pain, there's always that, you know, paranoia that, oh my God.
Or you go to WebMD and diagnose yourself with a terminal illness.
And so
WebMD, not a sponsor.
And so I actually did undergo a lot of follow-up. So I would just, you know, and I was very close to my urologist. And so I kept coming back to him a couple times.
You're here again?
Yeah, and so he kept telling me, he's like, listen, you're fine.
So I want to talk about scanxiety. It's something very common with any age, but you know, you're 25, 26 years old, and the last thing you want to think about is mortality. Yeah. But when you're a doctor, and you have scanxiety, and you go see a doctor, what's that like?
It's, you know, it's not rational, meaning that like, you know, you read the statistics, you know what your probability is like, but there's. You know, it's somewhat debilitating.
Right.
You know, I mean, think about it. Like you're in medical school. Like you're on call. Like you're the demands, the workload is so intense.
Yeah.
And I thought one of the most challenging things for me, and I imagine lots of other people who are, working age and trying to get back into the rhythm of life, I found it was very challenging to reconcile the fact that, you've just been confronted with your mortality, that life is short, the whole,
Right.
the whole kind of like, live for today,
Mm-hmm.
with the fact that, you have to, you have to work and you have to sacrifice for
Yeah.
work, and particularly in medicine that takes so much out of you. So I found it very difficult. So obviously, the anxiety was hard, but I think for me the hardest part was sort of reconciling that, which
Right.
was how do you stay up all night, on call, working 100 hours a week, not seeing friends and family, and at the same time knowing that you could die.
Right.
Right, and that's just sort of one of those things that you have to sort of deal with psychologically, and you have to move on. And so that's kind of, for me, that was the most challenging part. And I'd say it probably took about a year or two.
I was going to ask, like,
Yeah,
that shit takes time.
because then I started my internship. So after Harvard, I came out to UCSF to do my residency. So I did an internship in pediatrics. And an internship is like notoriously grueling. And I
Yes,
think
I've heard.
and that was, and I think I was all still kind of messed up because when you're on call every third or fourth night, it just it physically takes a lot out of you. And so when you're also still grappling with your own mortality,
Yeah.
it's hard to kind of give the job the level of sort of dedication that I think it really deserves.
But and you were saying, like, every ache and pain is another cancer.
Everything, yeah. I remember one time I was I actually I think I was self-examining so much that I actually was tender. So and then I went to my urologist. So I think I had my best friend and my co-founder. He was one of my classmates from medical school. And we joked that I should get my own ultrasound machine.
Nice.
Because that would have also saved me a lot of
Yes.
time. But eventually, I think eventually I kind of got past it. It just takes time.
I can't tell you how many folks I've run into in our age group who are practicing oncology now because they had cancer.
Yeah.
And that they were either in medicine or doing something else or just working outside of medicine.
Yeah.
And they got sick and they're like, I want to work in oncology.
Yeah.
So it's a real passion project for you.
It is, and and it totally happened to be that both of my parents got diagnosed with cancer a couple of years ago. And
Both?
Both. It was first my mom and then my dad.
Wow.
And unfortunately, they're still alive.
Yes, knock wood.
Yeah, and they had and they had more serious disease, but yeah, and it just inspired me the way. I guess what my experience did for me was that the way that I benefited from other physicians and scientists' sacrifice to develop treatments that cured my disease.
Yeah.
So I feel that I have a responsibility to pay that forward.
Yes.
And so the level of sacrifice that Driver and my career has required, to me, I feel is almost like an obligation.
So let's talk about that. So you co-founded a company called Driver.
That's right.
Why?
So
Like another healthcare company. But
Well-
seriously, it's different, and I want you to share that with us.
So the problem I started Driver with a good friend of mine, my closest friend from medical school, who's a radiation oncologist. So I got into oncology. We both got passionate about oncology. He became a radiation oncologist. His name's Will Polkinghorn. And Will and I were in our residency, and we were both physician scientists, meaning that we took care of patients, but we were also really interested in research. And I personally was drawn to medicine because I wanted to contribute to the development of new treatments because there are a lot of diseases that right now don't have any good treatments. And so we were kind of we had this sort of dual role where we're working in the lab and taking care of patients, splitting our weeks in that way. And what we were experiencing was that in the research lab, we live in a world where science is just exploding.
Mhm.
There are new technologies that you probably read about in the paper, things like CRISPR, genome editing.
Well, there were 72 FDA-approved drugs last year
Well,
alone.
here's the thing, Matt. 72 FDA-approved drugs. The number of drugs that get FDA approved are a fraction of the new drugs that could be approved.
Right.
Because of what's being developed in the research
Well,
laboratories.
the living in trial world.
That's right. And so what kind of inspired Driver was the fact that there was this chasm between science and what was happening in the clinic. And so, that was really how, we meditated on this problem. And the kind of aha moment was that what's holding the development of new treatments back or slowing it down is the fact that the marketplace in which patients get access to new treatments hasn't evolved in 150 years.
Right.
So what is that marketplace? It's the hospital.
Right.
Okay. So you got to remember, where did hospitals come from? Well, for 2,000 years, doctors came to you, right?
Yes.
And so, if you were well, if you got sick, you called the doctor and they came to your house. And basically what happened, a seminal moment in medicine was in the 1840s, anesthesia got developed, okay? And you may have read about this. There was a dentist named Dr. Morton in Boston, and he anesthetized someone. And then there was a big demonstration at MGH and under the Ether Dome, and eventually that ushered.
Ether Dome.
That's right. And it's still there. They have grand rounds there every week. And with anesthesia, you could now perform surgeries, complex. Because before anesthesia, surgeons were basically like butchers. Yeah, they just like the faster the surgeon, the better.
Yeah.
But with anesthesia, you could perform more complex surgeries. So now there was a reason to go to the hospital, because the hospital overnight became a center of technology.
Yeah.
So every major hospital you've ever heard of was basically created about 10 to 15 years after the development of anesthesia. Mayo Clinic, 1864.
Right.
UCSF, 1864. Even in Europe, the great institutions like Royal Marsden or in Berlin, all these great places, they all sort of like were created in around between 1860 and 1880. And that really was the marketplace of today. And so now what happens is you go to the hospital to get access to care. And that's like and the hospitals are like department stores. They're like the J.C. Penney's of medicine. And so you physically...
J.C. Penney, not a sponsor.
And so so the problem is that in order to get access to the best treatment, as a patient, you physically have to actually enter a hospital and physically interact with a human being, right? So, and you remember this, when you got treated, you actually sit down across from a physician, in their white coat, and you hand them your medical records, and you hand them your tumor, and they process
in a jar.
Yeah.
There you go.
And they process that information in their head and then offer you a treatment. And then you can debate it. You can go to another doctor and get a second opinion.
Right.
But that's basically how it works. And the problem with that is that, that was fine when there was only one chemo regimen and, medicine was more of an art.
Now there's scores of things now. Is your question then, how could they possibly know everything?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
That as a patient,
not to throw them under the bus, but there's such a literacy gap.
It's not even an individual physician's fault. There's no conspiracy. We're sort of victims of our own success.
Right.
Where, there are literally thousands and thousands of new treatments that are being developed in the form of clinical trials, but even more, but patients aren't even getting access to standard of care. And that's the point I want to make, is what Driver is, we started this company to make sure that patients get access to the best treatment. And there's two ways that you get treated as a patient.
So it's about choice.
It's about choice.
And objectivity
and
about awareness
about getting visibility into what's out there and being able to act upon that information. And so what we built is a marketplace.
Right.
Because that was our diagnosis. And what do we need to do? Well, we can't continue in this sort of like pre-Amazon bookstore model of medicine, where you walk into a bookstore, and depending on what clerk you talk to, that's the inventory of books.
Or what's in stock, or
what's in
stock.
stock.
The Dewey Decimal System.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so
look it up, kids.
Yeah, I remember the cards. And so what we wanted to build was sort of like an Amazon-like platform where we basically recreate the same information exchange, where you could send in your clinical records, all of your medical records, your biologic material.
So you become the watchers.
We become...
You're the barista.
Yeah, well, what Driver is that we're a platform that right now, that we built a platform in the current gap between the patient's home and the front door of the hospital.
Right.
Right now, there's nothing there, right? And so what we built is a platform like Amazon, where you can upload all your information and see everything that's out there and be able to choose one of those options and be evaluated.
Right.
Because fundamentally...
So you're creating almost consumer level navigation.
That's right.
Where you're not dependent on as much of the clinic.
Well, you still got to go to the hospital to get the treatment. So think about kayak, right? You know,
Right.
if you and I wanted to fly to Chicago tomorrow, we'd go to kayak
And they would tell us all the things, and we choose.
and you wouldn't have this terrifying fear that there's some secret American Airlines flight that you don't know about.
Right.
What freaks every
Which
cancer
there
patient
always
out.
is.
I remember when my mom and dad got sick, and when someone gets sick, it feels, number one, like you're the first person that's ever been diagnosed with that. So it's so hard to get access to just basic standard of care information. But there's also this concern: is what my doctor told me the best treatment recommendation that he could think of or she could think of? Or is that the best that the whole community of oncology has to offer? And so you live with that fear that there might be something out there that you don't know about.
Yeah, well, or you don't even know to have that fear because you trust the doctor.
That's right.
Which
That's
is
right.
fine too.
That's right. And so what we're doing is we're bringing a level of transparency and access that platforms like Kayak and Airbnb and Uber and Trivago, where we're not replacing
Not a sponsor.
where we're not replacing the oncologist, we're just making it easy for patients to get access to their options.
So walk me through a scenario then. I'm diagnosed with something horrible, presumably horrible. I find out about this marketplace and I talk to the doctor. I'm the one saying talk to the doctor, or you're the one saying
well, what we do is, so the way it works.
But you go to the doctor and it's like, nope, that's not right for you. How do you know to trust him? And if he's like, well, what's driver?
Well, that's a good question. And so, well, let me just kind of step back and tell you how it works. So the way Driver works is when you sign up as a patient, you download our app. And through that app, a patient tells us where they've been treated. And what we do is we go out and collect all of your medical records on your behalf, everything. And we collect your tumor and a portion of your saliva, which is a big problem. That's the first step in unlocking access, because as you know, when you're a patient,
genomics.
Yeah, your information, I mean, your medical records and tissue is sequestered in all sorts of different institutions. So we just get all your stuff liberated and in one place, which is really important. Just for getting, its democratization, it's empowerment. Fundamentally, what we're doing is we're empowering patients to be able to get access to care. And so getting all your stuff,
them like this dashboard of we think this is the best thing for you.
Yes, well, number one, we collect all your information, okay, which is really powerful. And then if you want access to your options, so we do two things. One, we give you information about what is 2018 guideline-based ongoing care. How frequently should you get scans?
Right.
How frequently should a woman who's been treated for breast cancer get a bone density scan or get screened for endometrial carcinoma?
Right.
Or someone who's had prostate cancer, like how frequently should get their PSA checked?
Right.
Because right now that follow-up care is falling through the cracks. So that's number one. Number two, if you want to know, hey, I urgently need a clinical trial, you can activate Hyperdrive. So that's our flagship product. What Hyperdrive is...
Very Gene Roddenberry.
Thank you. Hyperdrive...
Look it up, kids.
Yeah, I don't... Do people still know about Star Trek? Or
well, the new movies, maybe.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because Chris Pine is one of the Chris's.
Oh, that's right.
Lest we not forget the Chris's of Hollywood.
Hyperdrive basically is our core technology that allows a patient to know what clinical trials they are actually eligible for across our network of partner institutions. So we've gone out and partnered with the best cancer hospitals in the United States, the National Cancer Institute, UCSF. Literally, we physically have been on the ground and met with the clinical research teams, have gotten all of the information about their clinical trials. And so we recreate that information exchange that right now happens in person. So it's as if you physically have been evaluated at all of these top cancer hospitals.
Right.
And we show you your options according to institution. Now, and if you want to go to NCI or if you want to go to Stanford or UCSF, you can click on one of those options. And what we do is we send all of your information to the PI and the clinical research staff, and we get you an appointment.
Right.
So it's not just a widget that says, okay, here's a quick search engine for you. But it's end-to-end
It's like
connection.
a real navigation.
It's a real navigation tool. And what we're trying to do is to fill in that gap that right now, patients are just kind of falling through the cracks. And the story of Driver, it's just, for 2,000 years.
Well, it's born of your condition.
That's right.
We can share horror stories of being founders of companies.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
If we had a drink right here, right now, we would toast to being founders of companies.
And I'll tell you, and the story of Driver is, it's the story of two physicians who went out to Silicon Valley, because we're based in San Francisco, and we had to figure all this out. We had to learn how to build software because it's a tech platform.
Right.
We had to build out a genomics platform, and fortunately, I mean, I know a little bit about that as based on my specialty. We had to recruit a spectacular team. So we've got about 100 employees that are superstars, some of the best software engineers, operations folks, business development folks, a real superstar team. And you know what it's like recruiting superstars.
Yeah.
It takes time, it takes patience, and you really have to, you really have to work at it.
Right.
And so we've had to, just enter into these areas and just figure it out. But we've been doing it because we have a very clear focus. We've built all of this for the patient.
Right.
A lot of these digital health platforms.
Consumer focus.
It's consumer focus. And what hasn't, I think, digital health platform companies, and we even kind of think that's somewhat of a dirty word, they have been built with other customers in mind, pharma companies, hospitals,
HCPs,
B2B.
EMRs.
That's right. Our customer is the patient. We built this company to serve the patient. And we built it as physicians and as patients ourselves.
And as a patient
patient myself, yeah.
So we are looking to the stupid cancer community to help Driver understand how we can help them make cancer suck less for people like us. So tell us about your beta program.
So we just launched our beta program. And so, and what that is that we, you can go to our website, driver.xyz, and you can actually purchase our product, which is an app that you can download, and we provide all the services that we just described. In addition to Hyperdrive, we also have a service called Driver On, and that's where you can set up a video conference with an expert oncologist. So if as a patient... Telepresence. So if you want to have your questions answered, we set you up with a physician, and it's delightful and easy, just like it should be.
Yes.
And so those services are all available right now. And what we're doing is we're partnering with organizations and patients. We want to get feedback from our users. Because the goal here is to build a platform that serves patients, we want to get input and feedback from patients.
Well, obviously, they're your user base.
That's our user base. We want everybody's, we want to understand how we can make it better. We're going to be getting ready for our big public launch where the broader public can buy this.
Very nice.
And you can buy it for yourself, or you can buy it for somebody that you care about.
At the Driver XYZ website?
Driver.xyz.
Driver.xyz.
Yeah, www.
XYZ is a domain.
It is. Well, Google's parent company, Alphabet, is abc.xyz.
Oh, look at that.
And that was what kind of...
The things you learn on the Stupid Cancer Show.
But we want to build a movement with patient organizations like yours and just patients, because that's what we need right now. Is we need to change the paradigm for how patients get access to care.
I will add that for those of you attending CancerCon 2018, you guys are a proud exhibitor.
We're going to be there.
You will be there showcasing your wares with a Z.
That's right.
Apparently, you say that, and you get to meet the whole team.
Yeah.
And we love our exhibitors. You have not been to CancerCon, obviously.
Well, me personally, I have not.
But,
a couple of other members of our team
yes,
have.
but your mind is going to be blown away.
Yeah.
It's going to mess your head up to be in a room with 600 of us.
Yeah.
And teens and 20-somethings out there. But I got to tell you, I think those of you attending the conference will really get a lot out of them being there. You'll get boots on the ground, straight up feedback on what this is, what it looks like, how it helps.
And we've, and I've spoken to a lot of patients and patient organizations, and I think what we've been sensing is that there's a lot of frustration out there coming from patients, because what doesn't make sense or doesn't feel right is that all of these resources that have been developed, the standards, the guidelines, the new the new research that's being produced by research centers, those resources have been paid for by taxpayers.
Right.
Those are the people's resources. And the problem today is that we don't have access to those resources.
Right.
And that's a problem. It's a huge problem. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to address that injustice, and doing it through a patient-led movement. And so we want everybody to join this movement, and we want to get this rolling in a full-throated way. And so we're going to be at CancerCon telling our story, and we look forward to meeting everybody there.
It's a big deal. So the company is Driver. The website is driver.xyz.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for our help. So call to action for those of you out there, our listeners, our viewers, our BFFs in the community. check out Driver.xyz. If you are coming to CancerCon, check out their booth. Extremely, really exciting stuff.
Oh,
I'm going to botch your last name again, but I know it's Petros Giannikopoulos. Is that right?
Perfect.
I didn't botch your name.
No.
Petros Giannikopoulos. I'm going to give myself a little balloon drop in the video.
Well, you know, Greek words are consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel. I think it's the length that kind of freaks people out. And people give up after the first syllable. But if you stick with it, it's pretty easy.
I took a PG. Dr. PG. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Matt.
Another great episode of the Stupid Cancer Show. We'll see you back here next time. And take care, guys. Bye-bye. Hello, friends. Do you like making young adult cancer suck less? Because I do. So if you do, be sure to click that subscribe button and the notification bell to never miss an episode of the Stupid Cancer Show. And follow us on social and all those things you crazy kids do.